Thank you for viewing this month's virtual lecture from Mayo Clinic Laboratories. This month's virtual lecture was originally recorded during our 2022 phlebotomy conference called Performance, Public Health, and People in a Post-COVID World. Our speakers for this presentation are Linda Bacchus and Jennifer Storley.
Linda Bacchus has a strong passion for patient care, particularly the impact and importance of phlebotomists in healthcare. Linda has over 20 years experience in phlebotomy. During that time, she has held various roles in the phlebotomy field. She's been a phlebotomist, a phlebotomy lead, an assistant supervisor, and now her current role of an education specialist. Linda appreciates the dedication, patience, and skill it takes to make or be a great phlebotomist.
And my co-presenter is Jennifer Storley. And Jennifer has worked in phlebotomy for Mayo Clinic for the past 20 years with experience working in both the outpatient and inpatient areas. Jennifer started as a phlebotomist and continued to advance her career, becoming an assistant supervisor and then a supervisor of both an outpatient work unit. And now currently she's the operations manager for inpatient lab services. Neither Jen or I have any disclosures to share with you today. So, hey, right down the middle, 50% has sometimes. So about 46% say, yes, do you feel comfortable? And then about 8% are not comfortable dealing with difficult people. So hopefully throughout today, we will give you some tools to deal with difficult people.
So we're going to talk about what defines a difficult employee. Many of us, maybe our first instinct is to run from a difficult person. The challenge is finding out what behaviors you're willing to work with, and then what behaviors will need to be modified and or stopped. Interacting with difficult people, they're going to come from all corners of our lives. There are ways to navigate through these situations other than running. And today we're going to take a look at what are some of the skills needed to interact and communicate with difficult people to have that healthy and personal and professional relationships within our lives. So one thing I want you to think about is, how do you define a difficult employee? What does that mean to you?
Through our research, Jennifer and I did a lot of reading and digging into these topics here. And the ones that we found to be the most evident were bad attitude, the slow worker or the work avoider, the complainer, the pot stirrer, the gossiper, shows high emotions, defensive, or know-it-all. So hopefully one of those at least stepped into your head here or thought about someone. So the bad attitude does not share good things or provide encouragement to coworkers. This person may be the person you say good morning to, and the answer that they give back to you is, what's good about it? I bet most of you just thought of somebody that has that type of attitude.
Yeah, we actually got a few where people said unwilling to accept change or complaining about everything, refusing to take direction, whether it's negative or poor attitudes.
Love it. And then slow worker or work avoider just does enough to get the job done, just enough to get by. So they don't step out of their way to really help others. They don't stay active with the work communications. This person is someone that the team, if you're working in teams, wanders off or isn't much of that team player. That person may work harder to find ways of how to get out of doing something than actually doing the task itself. The complainer is pretty much self-explanatory, thinks of nothing good about the job. They just have nothing good to say. And then the next two for me are the most mentally and emotionally draining. And that's the pot stirrer, the gossiper, or the shows high emotions. So the pot stirrer shares unprovoked information or information that's not theirs to share. And so they may say, hey, did you know about Jennifer did this? Sorry, Jennifer, and shared information about Jennifer that wasn't theirs to share. And they start disagreements between others. They just suck a bit of joy out of your day. So these are people that personally I like to avoid. Shows high emotions. These are individuals that show outward emotions, such as possibly negative body language, or they cry a lot, or you can see nervousness. Just lots of high emotions. These people can be difficult to communicate with. You may have to change your communication styles often with these people. You are not sure if the conversation is going to go really well, go out through the roof, or way down to the basement. So most of you may have someone you know that just popped into your head that has this characteristic as well. Defensive. These people are your I don't do that, or no one's told me how to do that before. I only did it because they do not take ownership of an independent issue or event. And these people, or this group of people, are your great deflectors. So when you are talking to them, having a conversation with them, they are experts at trying to get the conversation off of themselves and onto something else. So you're not putting your focus on them. They are your great deflectors. And then know-it-all is pushing against knowledge shared by leadership, coworkers, or trainers away that and disregards information that they're sharing or trying to tell them. Maybe you have a new employee that was trained elsewhere with different tools, policies, or techniques. Their interactions may be like, that's not how I did it where I worked. That's not how I was taught. Or it's the person with the philosophy, it's my way or the highway.
So we did get another one that added also like disregarding policies and procedures as well.
Good.
So we're going to ask that you imagine one person that you struggle with to connect with, that you find to be that difficult person. And just think about what are the behaviors that they display, what language do they use, and what do they do to the work unit?
Okay, so which category do you find the most difficult to deal with? So it's the bad attitude, the slow worker, the work avoider, the complainer, the pot stirrer, the gossiper, someone who shows high emotion, that defensive person, or that person that knows it all.
So it looks like we have everybody that responded.
Okay. And there's our graph. So bad attitude is the winner here, clearly by the looks of this. And then the pot stirrer and gossiper. Nice, thanks for sharing that.
So there could be an argument, right? Is it that people are a difficult employee, or is it that they're disengaged, or is it that they've become a difficult employee because they're disengaged? So either or could cause those behaviors to come about. What we know is that disengaged employees, they're going to be less productive, right? So they're going to do that minimum amount of work that is needed to get through their day. They're going to stay just under the radar so that nobody brings them up for discussion or maybe shares forth any concerns, but they're definitely not going to be your high achievers. A disengaged employee is going to take more breaks, and how this may look is not that they're taking their 15 or 30-minute break multiple times throughout the day, but they might notice that, they're stopping for a quick snack break every 30 minutes, or that they're stopping to get a drink, or that they just have to use the restroom really frequently. They're finding anything else to do but the work that is needed to be done. A disengaged employee can also be disengaged from the team. So they might complain about work. They're going to be quick to blame others. They might choose to work alone so that they don't develop those relationships. They're not going to ask questions, and they're going to avoid any type of communication. The next one is interesting because disengaged employees, they're going to want something, but they're not going to be willing to give. And right, as an organization, we need somebody who's going to be willing to give back to the company. So what that looks like is they like to share when things are not going well, and they might ask for you to take care of situations, but they're not willing to be part of the solution or the answer. They're not part of committing to make something better. You may also see that there's a higher increase in absenteeism. They may be more likely to just call in. They could also be disengaged employees that carry over these behaviors into their personal lives. So you might see that there's just an overall tiredness or a lack of inspiration that they have. So there are 3 levels of employee engagement that we're going to talk about: engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged. So the engaged employee, they're going to be those high performers. You're going to trust them. They're going to be efficient. They're excited about their role. They like to have and share knowledge. They like to share ideas. And then the not engaged, there's little effort that you're going to see. They may have increased absences. They're not going to want to interact. There's going to be a lot less communication with a not engaged employee. And then you can also be actively disengaged. And actively disengaged, these are going to be those people that are actually going to work harder to not have to do something than to do something. They're going to express the bad attitudes. They're going to be disrespectful and maybe have disrespectful interactions with their peers. They may belittle their coworkers just to try and make themselves look better. They're the people that can easily make a team miserable. So we have one more poll that Linda's going to bring up here.
Yep. What level of engagement do you feel currently in your work unit? Is it engaged, not engaged, or actively disengaged?
So this is kind of just to think about those things we've talked about, and now just think about what is your level of engagement in this work unit before you were to bring forward anything to your team. We've got a few more people that are participating, so that's nice to see.
Okay, I'm going to show the graph now. Wow, almost, well, good 82% are engaged.
So
and about 6% are actively disengaged.
Yeah, so hopefully through this talk that the information that we provide, hopefully we can see how can you turn those numbers around. Those that are actively engaged, it allows you to take that information back to your teams, to your work unit. What are you doing? And hopefully we have some additional tidbits to share with you.
We're going to talk about identifying the behavior. So it's B, critique, define, open. There's 2 sets and a provide and B again. So you start with B and you end with B. Be specific, identify that behavior, create your behavioral statement. What does that look like for you? Here's an example, and we're going to use throughout the rest of this talk an example of a tardy employee. So example, I have noticed multiple days of tardy of 15 minutes or greater. It's specific to the behavior that you want to focus on with the employee. And it's stating to the employee, not the person. So that's the next part, is that critique. You want to just stay on the behavior. You do not want to critique the person. So you don't want to say things like you do or you always, those kind of things. So try to avoid words that conjure a negative response. Keep the verbiage to the behavior and not the person. Remember to humanize those situations. So yeah, an example again, you seem to be late consistently. Feel the difference between the two. I have noticed multiple days of tardy of 15 minutes or greater, or versus the you seem to be late constantly. Which one do you think that employee, to get that conversation kicked off, is going to take better and get that communication going in a more positive way? The next one is define. You want to define what that issue is, but you also want to define it to the way that you understand it, because you want to make sure that you really are delving in and you are understanding what that issue is for the employee as well. So when I say as you understand it, I mean to make sure that you're asking those clarifying questions yourself to make sure that you do understand where that employee is and what that issue is. Share your observations of the behavior using specifics as much as you can. So an example here again of why being tardy affects the work unit or the employee itself. So being tardy in a direct patient care environment creates delays to patient collections. So that's why that's your issue. That is what's going on and why that tardy affects the patient care and your work unit and that employee from being successful. Be open. So open up dialogue, listen, and you need to listen to more than just what the employee is saying. You need to watch their body language and anything else that's happening and occurring with that, and trust your gut when you're listening to them. So identify the causes of the problem, be open to that feedback, and definitely be non-judgmental throughout your conversation. An example here, are you experiencing difficulties currently that are making it difficult to report to work on time? And then the next one is set. You want to set the boundaries. So share and provide clear direction of what you want them to do. So boundaries are really important, and you need to build that box of what you want them to work within. So, and it's being transparent during that time as well. So an example here is, for the next week, I want you to chart arrival times to the work unit and when you are prepared with your equipment and orders for patient collections. So that's the boundaries you're setting for them. And the next part that it builds on, it's setting the priorities and goals, and you need something to monitor their progress and some type of measurement to make that happen. So are you being transparent and precise with your expectations? An example here, the goal or assignment for the next week is two-part for you. One, I want you to chart your arrival time for when you arrive to work. And two, I want you to chart your prepared time with equipment and patient orders. I've created a tracking sheet here for you. So let's go over it together. And if you have any questions, please ask. Now we have something to measure for that feedback. So we want to provide that feedback and follow up. So we want to make sure that we have consistent touch point meetings. We want to provide reinforcement even outside of those touch point meetings if we can, for the wanted behavior that we are asking for, and let them know that you notice what they are doing good. So here's an example for that. I noticed that you have reported to work on time and have been prepared for your patient collection at the assigned shift time. I understand this has been a difficult time for you. Great job, you're doing really well with this. And then be consistent and fair with employees. Example, do not allow a good employee to be late without being noticed, and a difficult employee to receive immediate corrective action. Doing so will grow disengaged employees.
All right, so we're going to touch base on not making assumptions. So regardless of how we feel towards an employee, we want to make sure that we're taking the time needed to understand the situation, the complete situation. We want to listen to have that full understanding. So that can also be talked about as like reading between the lines or reading the shadows. When we don't make assumptions, what that's doing is we're helping to define what the issue is. And we're having that open dialogue then to have that communication between the employee and the manager. Setting those boundaries, such as Linda talked about, so that we have a clear direction of what's expected from both sides. And then, providing that feedback and follow up and being consistent. So we're going to ask, how are things going with work, and making sure that we understand from a personal as well as a career development side, how does this person want to grow? What are their expectations, and what's going on in their lives, so that we can have a full understanding.
So assumptions in a nutshell are stories that are created on a limited knowledge that you have. So as humans, our minds are set to fill in the blanks of what we don't know. So our minds, without knowing all the facts, tend to fill in the blanks and create its own story. Have you ever noticed this in your work unit? Some news may have been shared or leaked somehow, but not all the facts are out there or understood. So the staff begin talking about it and stories are being created. The story can be minor, like, I don't know, something about one assignment may have changed, to the extreme that we're all being fired. It can go anywhere in between. And it's the way that our minds work and the stories and how we make up our own stories. One team building activity that I had the opportunity to participate in my work unit here was learning about assumptions. And we had the team watch a video that we showed about assumptions, and we discussed assumptions and what that was like. And we did some role playing kind of thing that pertains specifically to their job. And during this time, we learned things about our job, but we also learned things about each other too. And during one of these meetings, these learning sessions, there were two people in one of the sessions that I'll never forget. But it was very interesting because they both thought that they hated each other. And it ended up coming out that they didn't. And now today, they have shared that they're very good friends now today. But it's just funny how they thought, well, you didn't talk to me. And I always felt like you were looking at me odd, that I just thought that you really hated me. And it never was the truth until they actually talked to one another. So it's very interesting. Assumptions can create disagreements, or they do. They can create conflicts, and they build low team morale. So assumptions is one thing that you can do to train your team and talk about it, and build that morale. It really does make a difference. There's a lot of information out there about assumptions, and I would encourage you to go out there and look, because that can be a whole topic all on its own. But it is amazing with the information and things out there, how assumptions can impact a team in a good way or a negative way. And an example for you from a manager perspective, using the 15-minute tardy employee. The manager is receiving complaints from coworkers and peers. And this employee's name is Mark. We're just going to name him. No true name or anything like that. It's just completely made up. But Mark is always late and he's never on time. Another one, I can't count on Mark to be on my team. Mark doesn't like to show up on time. Mark always makes me late leaving from work because he's too lazy to show up on time to receive handoff. So there's multiple employees or peers that have come up and shared these things with you. So as a manager, it's your responsibility to figure out what's going on, right? So you sit down and you have that conversation with Mark. And you're going to use these skills that you're just learning here. So they're going to be specific in that conversation. The manager is going to identify the problem and the cause. He's going to be open in the dialogue, and he's going to remember to humanize the person. So listen, definitely listen, and listen to more than just the words that a person is saying. And then through your discussion, or through that manager's discussion, they learned that Mark's daycare provider just up and quit. And so currently he's a single parent. And so he doesn't have any backup. So he's really having a difficult time trying to find alternatives where he can drop off his children and so he can be to work on time. So it ends up being, okay, now we have an issue. What can we do together to try to create this? Do you need a couple of weeks to find this daycare, and we can adjust your shift times here a little bit? So the manager was specific with Mark in their conversation, gave that specific. So I have noticed over the last 10 shifts, there are late starts, and was asking, is there something that is preventing you from reporting to work, and how can I help? So that's how they ended up finding and coming up to what that issue was. And not only that, the manager was non-judgmental. They stated that specific behavior. They listened to learn and understand to define that issue. And like we said, now they know what that issue is, and they can work together to hopefully solve it.
So some of the things based on the example that Linda just shared was offering what can you do to help, right? So we want to look at here, it's a couple of options that we can offer employees to help. Either what your company offers, or perhaps what you yourself can just do for the employee in your work unit. And if you've got other suggestions that you have, feel free to add these into the chat feature, and we'll be sharing those forward as well. So what can you offer employees? A lot of companies have employee assistant program or an EAP, and those can focus on if there's family relationship issues, if there's alcohol or drug dependency, workplace or vocational issues, even like mental and emotional health, just what can you offer? Wellness initiatives. So Mayo has what we call wellness champions. You can have somebody that is responsible in your work unit to help infuse wellness options. Is stress something that is taking over in your work unit? What can you do to help with that? Is it that people have a goal to become healthier, actively engage together as a team? Maybe it's to plot how many miles, like for bike riding, or walking or running. It's just infusing different things in the work unit that create that team and help with the wellness initiatives. One project that recently has been shared with us here at Mayo, it's called Lend an Ear. And what the ear part stands for is empathize, assess, and refer. So it's just remembering that we have to have that empathy with people, assess the situation, and then know who to refer them to. And that's where, like EAP, if your company has, or if there are other entities, we'll also talk about, getting HR involved. Promoting taking breaks. A lot of people think, especially right now with the pandemic, or maybe you're short staffed, that breaks are a privilege. Well, breaks are something that energize us and allow us the time to be able to give more to the company. So when staff are on breaks, are they truly on break? Are they disengaged? Are they able to step away from the job that they're currently doing, even if it's just for a few moments? Breaks are important in healthcare. It's a high-paced environment, as well as one that can deal with a high level of emotion. So we need to allow staff to be able to decompress and have those times for themselves. They can also support team members, and they help diminish that burnout. We called work-life, a lot of people say work-life balance. We said work-life blend because it seems like in today's world, it's more of a blend. People are working from home, so they're balancing that life at home with maybe family there as well as working. They might work additional hours because of the short staff. With technology, we've got our emails on our phones. We're able to be connected with our coworkers and with our company frequently. Days off, are you disconnecting? And I think it's good to have a conversation too of what does that look like. Some people are going to be like, nope, at the end of the day when I'm done, I'm disconnected and I go home. And others are going to be on point to continue to answer emails or maybe connect. One shouldn't be judged differently than the other, but those are the expectations that need to be kind of set forward, that, once you're done with work, when you're done at the end of the day, I don't expect you to pay attention to what's going on with work, or thank you for doing that, but it's not an expectation. I think sometimes those lines are getting very blurred, and we're not allowing ourselves to have those times where this is my family time, this is my personal time, and this is my work time. So helping to define that with your employees. Also being able to get an HR involved just to help share those policy expectations. They have a high level of what that looks like, and sometimes they can clearly state those expectations to an employee maybe better than a manager can. This can vary between institutions and how your HR departments work, but find out what's offered for assistance. At times, sometimes just having someone from an outside come in and share and have that talk can be a positive and uplifting experience. And addressing burnout. That is something that I feel like has been in the topic of conversation, especially as the pandemic continues on, as we work short-staffed, as we've had high volumes of patients to take care of. What does that look like? There's a lot of preconceived ideas of what burnout looks like, and it's going to be different for you than it is for me. My level of where I hit burnout is going to be different from your level of where you're at. Make sure we're just having that open dialogue, that we allow people to share what they're concerned about, that we allow them to be honest and to share what their concerns are. If we can offer them suggestions, maybe some of those concerns can bring a wellness initiative into your work unit. Maybe out of those concerns, we can direct the employee to say, hey, we've got an EAP here. That's what they're for. They're for you. Let's, here's the phone call. Let's give them a call and see what they can do to help you out. But it's really important to be accepting of that and not just put it to the wayside and be like, well, everyone's burned out or everyone's short-staffed. We have to really address the personal experiences that people are having. And then mentoring and peer-to-peer coaching. Do you have this in your work unit? Do you encourage it? team meetings? Do you have one-on-one meetings to just kind of work on growth and what each employee is expecting? Do we assign a preceptor to new hires so that when they come in, they've got a buddy that they can go to for questions and, you know, talk about situations? Are you promoting engagement in the work unit for new hires, welcoming new staff? So we're going to talk about onboarding a little bit later, but that can be part of it as well, is when a new employee starts, are you connecting them with a peer to maybe give a tour of the area or just to kind of learn some of the background information about your work unit? All right, so employee engagement. Let's discuss this a little bit further. Employee engagement is that measure of how strongly employees feel connected to their work and their employer. But according to Gallup's State of Global Workplace, there's only about 15% of employees who are actively engaged in the workplace. Remember that when we talked about employee engagement, we shared those 3 levels of engagement, and that was to be engaged. Those are going to be our high performers. They're trusted, efficient, as well as not engaged. They're showing little effort. And then those that are actively disengaged are working really hard to not work hard at all. Research shows that the disengaged employees, it's a little bit higher than what this last video was. It's a little bit older, but that it actually costs companies right now 450 to 500 billion every year. And who can afford those type of costs? If we can change it around, we know that engaged employees will show an increased performance level. Engaged employees are going to help us increase patient satisfaction, right? Because they're going to use empathy. They're going to be concerned that they're giving the best service to that patient. There's a chance for lower turnover rates because they're going to be content with the work unit and the company that they're working for. They're engaged. They feel like there's opportunities for growth. They're getting that feedback. Reduced absenteeism. If I know that I'm valued and I'm important, I'm going to show up today. If nobody notices that I'm gone, it's really easy to call in. If I don't feel like I'm bringing value to the work unit, then it's, well, what is the point of me coming today? And then also a benefit of decreased safety incidents, because you're more engaged, you're more inclined to understand what the policies are, you're taking the steps to do things correctly, you're not going to be taking those shortcuts. And so in return, you can have those decreased safety instances. So then we know we need a level of engagement, but how do we get there? And what does that look like? So these are just a couple of things we found during our research that really were keys to how to engage employees. And communication was, it's a really big one, and it can be a challenge, right? So if you have a work unit that's 24/7 and they're continuously out on the floors with collecting patients, they're not in one work unit, it can really be a challenge for how do you connect with employees? How do you share that immediate feedback? How do you connect with them to make them feel like they're valued and they're part of a team? So some ideas that we've tried or that we're currently doing are huddles. You can do those either in person or virtual. And so that's a great way to connect with employees. Working at newsletters. So even if somebody's not physically on site or if they're gone for a week, they're able to get that newsletter in their email and at least be up to date on what's happening or what's going to be, what is going to happen in the future. You can have a web page for your work unit where staff just know this is where I go to get the information that I need. Microsoft Teams was just discussed on the chat. So having a type of connection where people can connect quickly, immediately, and reach out. It can be professional or it can be personal, right? I'm going to break, I need help, or just a quick connection to say, hey, it's good to see that you're here today. There are ways to connect with people, and the environment that we're in right now, we're used to that. How many of you think to pick up a phone and make a phone call before or after you thought I'll text the person? You know, so we're used to having that level of engagement where we just quick type, and that's the kind of communication we have. You can also, you know, utilize your scheduling systems. How do you communicate what's needed in the work unit so that staff know? That's another level of communication that we need to make sure staff know what's needed so they can help be part of those solutions. And then onboarding. So we said we would talk about onboarding a little bit more, and onboarding is really big, right? So the moment that that new employee walks through the door, we want to connect with them. We want them to feel welcomed. We want them to know what the values are of your business. We want them to know what expectations are. There are different ways in which you can onboard. You can assign them a peer-to-peer person who's going to take them around and give them a tour of the area. You can do welcome baskets so that every new employee coming on gets the same basket. It can have little tokens in there. I mean, maybe it's just a name badge holder or a book about the company you work for. Maybe it's a coffee cup, you know, here, start your day with mayo in your hand or whatever your company is. So just letting them know that they're valued and welcomed and just connecting with them. Is there a personalized note in there? Have you had your work unit connect and give a personalized message, you know, just maybe a card thanking you for joining the work unit? Maybe it's a pack of lifesavers that says, you know, you've been a lifesaver to join our work unit, especially in these times when sharing staff or you know, having to try to onboard new hires, it's a challenge. So we want to make them feel very welcomed and engaged into that work environment immediately. Recognition is a big one. Some people will say, well, my paycheck's my recognition, or I don't need somebody to personally recognize me for everything. But the truth is, everybody wants to know when they've done a good job, and everybody wants to know how they can do a good job. So providing that recognition for people, it's not going to be the same for everybody. Just know that you might think that you're doing a nice job and somebody didn't receive it well. That's not a failure. It's just an opportunity to say, I need to get to know that employee just a little bit better so that I can learn what is it that they like to be recognized? How do they want to be recognized? And that can just be that quick handwritten note. As Linda was talking about the kudo board, that can be another opportunity. Employee engagement opportunities or employee celebrations. So you can volunteer as a team. A lot of times through like holidays, we'll kind of present this opportunity where maybe everybody says, hey, we're going to pick one area that we're going to donate items to. It can be the holidays or throughout the year. Companies, they welcome that. And it's a really nice team building exercise. You can have virtual lunch. So if you do have a number of people that are spread out or with the pandemic, not being able to sit close together, you don't have everybody pull it up on their phones. You can still connect and have those conversations. Play games. So one thing that we started last year was a joy group, and we have joyful break rooms. If you go into those break rooms, the joyful bins, what they are is they're like a cart or a bin. And what it is it has little games that people can play quickly during their break. Sometimes it's just a word puzzle, just something that you can sit down, take your mind off what's going on, and engage in something that you find joyful. It can also be simple things like adding a Keurig machine to your break room. Do you do a coffee bar? You know, do you have people bring in different types of coffees or drinks to try? You know, there's different ways in which you can connect and celebrate with your employees. Another great one is equity and inclusion. So do you have a group that looks at the diversity in your work unit? Are you celebrating it? Do you take opportunities to see what do people do for celebrations, for holidays, food? Food's a great one because it brings people together. They're able to share stories about their culture and sometimes share some really great recipes. So a lot of opportunity with employee celebration that can help engage people. And then of course, are you supporting growth? That's a big one. People want to know that they've got opportunity and room to grow in their careers. Are you having those one-on-one meetings to make sure that you're identifying career goals? You know, identify what the staff need, and if they're not sure how to get there, are we connecting with them with a mentor? Do we allow staff who are interested to be involved in career initiatives? Are they allowed to maybe lead meetings or to lead a huddle? Lead those team initiatives. If somebody brings forward a suggestion for you, are you allowing them to lead and take that on and create a group and then bring that information forward? It's a great opportunity to grow their leadership skills, get them connected and learn more one-on-one what their peers are needing and asking, and you'll grow that work unit. And the nice thing about it is if your team's doing that, you as a leader are able to step back and watch that happen. It takes that off your plate as well, and you can continue to move forward on changes that are needing to happen. So make sure you're encouraging that education. Mayo is really big at offering educational classes, so that's really nice as we have those opportunities to learn things, open communication, how to effectively open communicate. There's things like laughter yoga, cooking. So it doesn't just have to be for your mind, it can also be for your the spirit, for your wellness, for health and nutrition. So just holistically, how do we look at people? And then are you supportive of career growth as far as attending schools? Are you flexible with school schedules so that as those semester classes change, they can continue to work, but also still feel valued that their school is important? So those are some key things that we can do in the work unit, and we can help each other out that will help engage employees.
So what can leadership do? The biggies are train, encourage, help, make, and incentivize. So trainings, train employees to succeed in their role and beyond. We want to see our employees grow. So how do we do that? How can we do that? Do we need to invest in education? There's multiple things that we can do. And again, maybe ask your staff, what do you need more training on? Encourage your managers, encourage the managers to learn and to care about their employees' career goals. If an employee needs growth, involve the employee in having them write up their improvement plan. Let them be a participant in it, because we can set certain things for them, but we don't know instinctively how that person learns the best. They are the ones that know how to learn the best, so let them be a participant in it. And Jen already talked about being flexible with school schedules. Help managers keep an eye out for cross training, for development opportunities within interdepartmental management meetings. Maybe there's something that work units can combine on to make something better, make a skill better, make a task better, make something more efficient, more collaboration. Keep the mind open. And make sure new job opportunities are publicized within the organization and celebrate employee development. So do you post internal job opportunities within the work unit first to give your internal staff first opportunity at those? And then do you share job postings outside your work unit, but still within your institution to give them opportunity? Incentivize managers for growth of their employees. And even if it results in transitions across teams, not all turnover is bad. I know we hear turnover and we automatically think it's bad, but it's not. Not all of it anyway. Some is, but not all of it. There is such a thing as good turnover. And these are employees who are growing professionally or educationally, et cetera, but they still are staying with our company, with our institution. So you've built a great employee, so now your institution gets to keep a great employee too as well.
So we know that engaged employees are going to be more productive. They're going to want that feedback. So make sure you're providing that. They're going to be willing to embrace change, which we know is continuously coming at us. Be willing to give more to the company versus wanting more, and be more positive and energize others. So a couple key takeaways that we want to just kind of do an overview before we have a couple of minutes for question and answers is that we want to make sure that we're creating an environment where employees know that they're going to be recognized and appreciated for their contributions. We want to encourage employees to have the opportunities for professional growth and development, and communicate and engage employees to be part of that business change. Share the why, make sure you're being transparent.
And we're just going to, last but not least, leave some gems with you here. So be respectful. Everybody appreciates that. Don't assume to know what you don't know. All things grow, whether it's negative or positive. Decide which one you want to grow and just go with it. And then listen to understand. Listen to more than just the words and what you may read. And don't be afraid to try something different that your team has not done before, because you never know.
Thank you for participating. Please click the button below to complete the evaluation and obtain credit.